Hey, thank you for joining me for another video. So in this video, I just want to recap again about samskaras. Samskaras, so that's a Buddhist term, Buddhist concept, but some people call them thought forms and other people call them egregores. But they're really, so this is a really key concept, which I believe really could change the way, help a lot of people come out of suffering, okay? As you may or may not know, I've undergone a lot of conditioning due to being targeted via neuroweapons. My brain is very plastic, a pretty high degree, of neuroplasticity. I have to be incredibly careful every time I think something. I have to remind myself that I'm not my thoughts, not out of paranoia, but because of the fact that thoughts are sticky. Okay, thoughts are sticky, and because my mind is so plastic, I have to be careful what goes in it and what I keep. So I have to audit things very carefully, and that may sound very painstaking. It is painstaking, but through that process, I've learned a lot. And these are these things that I want to share with you because I believe they could truly help people, okay? Again, these are not things that I've just made up. Other people have observed them as well. So samskaras, what are samskaras? Samskaras are basically karmas, okay? So as Buddhists would say, so they're the result of any action, thought, emotion, experience, memory, whatever, experience. Well, memory is based on experience, but so basically anything to do with action, okay, doing in this reality, okay, forms a samskara, okay? It forms an imprint in your consciousness, okay? And if you don't, and over time, we all build them up, okay? So from the moment we're born, we build samskaras, and we come in with samskaras as well, okay? I think we come in with some as well. But we build samskaras as we go along. We have experiences, and obviously the type of life that we have, it depends a lot on the samskaras we have. So that's what karma really is, okay? It's not about tit for tat, okay? It's more about, like I said, what lingers in your consciousness as a result, or in this, as a result of what you do, okay, as a result of the experiences you've had. It's not about tit for tat, okay? It's not about that it sounds very sort of punitive when we say, oh, you'll get what's good, it's just basically a function aspect of consciousness where thought is sticky and experience is sticky, and it's, if we're not careful, we can build up a lot of psychic plaque in our consciousness, and again, that can build thoughts, behaviors, approaches to things, attitudes which are not constructive sometimes, which can form the basis of all kinds of things like addictions, maybe mental health complaints, maybe ways of thinking that are not useful, maybe ways of acting, abuse, all that sort of thing. It's not people's fault that they do these things, though. That's the thing. There are hidden, subtle influences in consciousness that make people do these things. And I think if people had an awareness of samskaras, potentially they would be able to be mindful of their thoughts in that sense and meditate more, or just journal, or just, again, it's not about, who is more, it's not about being spiritually evolved. It's more about suffering and taking people out of suffering. Again, this is not a new concept, okay? But it's something I've observed directly. I've seen samskaras in the field. They can appear visually. Okay, I've seen them. They've seen them. I've seen what they look like. They often appear as human beings talking to you, but they're speaking things that you've experienced in the past, but they'll appear in human form. Okay, so they'll appear, like, again, I've literally seen them many, many times. How can I give an example? Somebody might have said something to you yesterday, like you had a nice shirt on, and then you might see in the field, I don't know, today, that person, an incident might happen that might relate to your attire, okay, so what you're wearing, and then what will happen is you'll see a samskara in the field, or hear the samskara that relates to what happened yesterday, okay, so you'll re-experience that. Your mind might go to that event, you'll be reminded of it, but it's also doing it. There's a visual aspect to it as well. So it's like, it's, you know, it sort of trips a wire in your consciousness. Okay, it trips a wire, so to speak. It trips is like a psychic wire. Okay, so if we mind, if we have, if we understand this, if we understand that samskaras are real, and that, you know, they can affect our quality of life, and you know, if we integrate that awareness, I mean, we can effectively, we can, and there are many ways that we can help rid ourselves of this psychic plaque. There's meditation, there's chanting, energy work, and praying to God, you know, praying to all it is, source, again, going within, observing thought, becoming an observer of your thought, detaching, disidentifying from thought. Again, all these things that people have spoken about for eons, you know, are absolutely tools that we can use to relieve ourselves of the suffering which comes along with thought and these experiences, our attachment to thought. Okay, thought has a lot of uses. I mean, thought is, you know, so many great things come from thought. You can't avoid thought, you can't avoid it, but what you can do is disidentify with them, and discard what you don't want and replace it with things that you do. Okay, thoughts that you do. Again, not a new concept. I mean, neurolinguistic programming was a big part of my experiences being a target, you know, big part of it. I mean, you know, and you know, it's not, it's again, you know, you are, so you can sort of take things out and replace them with things that are actually you want to have, and you're circulating in your mind, you know, replace them with affirmations or just different things, okay, that you actually want to have in your consciousness. So yes, so there are a lot of potentials with, you know, possibilities for healing and relief of like I said, relief of suffering if we identify samskaras. Samskaras are everywhere. Like I said, they're everywhere. Okay, it's not just in, you know, your consciousness. They're in other people's. They're in buildings. They come off. They, you know, you know, as I've walked through different places, I've felt, I've heard things changing as I go through different, you know, outside, almost like as if I'm catching kites are sort of grabbing kites by, you know, strings are sort of, you know, clasping at strings and then letting them go, and then another, you know, so just things, it's again just, or just gathering things as I'm going along. And that's because I'm walking through like this field. Like I said, in the past I've particularly experienced this, you know, and it's that they're there. I mean, they're there. It's like, we're surrounded by them. Okay, and so and again, this is not something, you know, I mean, people have mentioned the holographic principle, and, you know, that we live in a holographic universe, and that, you know, and that these features, samskaras, you know, could very well, I mean, be linked to that, absolutely. But I think my focus really is on, again, how can we help people feel better in themselves, so they don't have to suffer, you know, as many people like myself and other people have suffered over the course of generations. Like, what can we do to change things on the planet, like in terms of consciousness? What are we missing? Okay, what are we missing at the moment? And I think that deep dive, this is why I'm so keen on sort of getting consciousness insights to surface, and other people are as well. You know, it's because I really believe that they could help people in a really, I mean, incredibly, you know, fundamental, profound way. You know, we're talking about relief from trauma, you know, ending trauma cycles and all sorts of things, you know, through sharing insight about Nephilim consciousness, the reality that we're not our body, how the phenomenon and what they actually are up to, you know, all these different things. could really like transform the way many people's lives. And so we don't have to, so, future generations can, live relatively trauma free, hopefully completely. But, again, these are things that it would be fantastic. And again, I know I'm not alone in thinking this, would love to see devolved into mainstream insight, and we could build new systems and ways of doing things, potentially, hopefully. Again, if we don't do that, that's fine, but I believe in the healing. I believe in the potential to change. I believe in the benefits of these, bringing these concepts to like a wide, and devolving the insights about these concepts to a wider, to making them mainstream. I believe that they could really form the basis of, some great therapies perhaps, or, ways of looking as just like approaches, build, a new integrating them into like a, a new approach to psychology, human psychology, so yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of benefits, all kinds of benefits to these things. And so again, I want to recap. But this is one of the things that I feel really, really strongly about. Okay, I feel really strongly about, really strongly about. Like I really believe in this. I deal with, even as I'm speaking to you, I'm batting these things off. Okay, because I also have ESP. I'm very like sensitive to things coming in all the time as well. But also I just want to say, like, again, it's not just that. I have to be very conscious of the quality of my own thoughts. Okay, I have to be very conscious of what I take on, what I allow to build up. I have to be conscious about not letting psychic plaque build up in my field, and making sure that what I have in my field is not, is not harmful. It was the right thoughts, and again, that might sound like a really, painstaking thing to have to do. It is painstaking, but again, it's worth sharing this stuff, because hopefully people who come after us won't have to go through such a horrendous, process. They'll have these things, available to them from a young age, these insights available to them, and they'll be conscious of it, and we'll live in a much more peaceful world. Okay, so they won't have to go through, like, jump through a million, deal with such like extreme trauma. I'm not the only person here. Okay, I'm just saying as an example, and I don't want to be the story, of course, but I'm just saying, like, again, hopefully future generations, it won't be, that would be lovely to think that it wouldn't be as hard for them to go through this process, because again, it makes, it's not easy to do these things, but it's important to share what is going on, because I believe that they could help people, again, people who are alive now, certainly, absolutely, but again, and also certainly future generations too, and again, as things, hopefully would come out of conflict, things would become more peaceful, less people would have less trauma. Again, it would be much easier for people to live, to do that disidentification, and not have to, again, to be so worried about what is coming through, because of the fact that the quality, so to speak, as Tom Campbell would say, the sort of quality of our consciousness, our field, our collective consciousness, would have improved, okay, because of the fact that our collective like, we would have broken that collective trauma cycle, and other things would have changed as well. Okay, so again, but the point, so again, as much as I make it sound like this is really intense, it is very intense. Okay, it's very stressful, but again, if it can benefit people in the long run, that's what matters. Hopefully, other people, future generations, can actually make use of these things, and people who are here now, God knows, it would be great. Again, not for me personally, but I believe, like I said, that awareness of this and how the phenomenon works, and thought, the nature of thought, how it functions, the sticky, how neuroplastic, how we build up that psychic plaque, how important it is to be observant of thought. If we want to, you don't have to, but it can relieve a lot of suffering if you do. Okay, you realize that it's a trap. And you realize that a lot of what you have in your field is actually a lie about who you are. It's actually a lie. Okay? What you've been told about who you are is a lie. Okay, what you have not who is a lie, and what you have circulating in your mind consciousness is very often a lie. Okay, it's what other people have told you who you are. Okay, very often. It's not actually who you are. Okay, and it's not who anyone is for that matter, really. But at the same time, and this is the paradox, is that it forms the basis of our experience. There's reason and utility in those things as well. And that is the paradox, okay? In the sense that everything serves. There is something to learn from those samskaras. If I say to you that your first thought is not the one you should trust, it's not accurate, because it isn't. Because the first thought you have is a samskara. Okay, the very first thought you have about something is a samskara. It's something that happened to you previously. So if I look at the bottle of water over there, the first thought that I'm going to have about it is about a previous thought I had about a bottle of water, or that bottle of water, or something similar. Okay, so it's not actually a present moment thing. So when I'm looking at that bottle of water, the first thing that comes into my head is actually about something that happened in the past. So I'm not actually being present and adjudicating what's happening, really in a position to evaluate what's happening here. I'm actually looking at these things from a past perspective, and it's not actually fair representation of what's going on. But at the same time, that first thought I've had holds value, because it says something about something that happened in the past, and it matters because we maybe need to look at that and say, what is this telling us? Was there something about that experience that matters? Is it something that I can put to one side? What is it? Is there something about this that can be looked at, as a form of insight, or again, maybe not with a bottle of water, but you know what I mean. So again, nothing is useless. Everything matters, and it's not about utility even. It's more intuitive and meaningful than that. But at the same time, I'm just using this as being more clinical about it. It's much more intuitive. Okay. So yeah, I think that, we can really benefit from sharing insight about samskaras. They are real. If you go with that first thought you have about something, you're very often taken down a road where things may be distorted or misrepresented. Okay, or I found that, at least, that it doesn't actually, but then it still matters. Okay, so even if you go down a windy road with something, and you do, and that's okay. Some people, of course, that's part of this experience. It has meaning as well. Okay, again, this is the paradox. All right, so this is the paradox. Is that basically, don't worry. Don't worry. If you decide to, if you care about these things, that's great. If you don't end up living a life where you come across these concepts, that's fine. Or you don't find them relevant to you, that's also fine. Okay. So again, and I say that I'm not like God or anything. I don't, but what I have seen of God, all it is that God loves everybody and everything unconditionally. And so, it doesn't matter what sort of life you've lived, you're not judged. But the idea here is to, again, share things that I think would help people not have to endure the sort of lives that myself, people I know, and people in the wider world have lived in the past, or even presently. There's a lot of suffering out there. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. But again, it's an important concept. And I hope, really hope that someday something is done with it. For this, again, because there are numerous benefits to these insights. I think there's so much potential. It's not just that, it's the Nephilim, it's phenomenon, like I said, lots of different things that other people are aware of but can't talk about, that would really help people. Okay, so thanks for listening, and bye bye.